नहमदुहु व नसल्ली अला रसूलिल करीम व नशहदु अन ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाह वहदहु ला शरीका लह व नशहदु अन्ना मुहम्मदन अब्दुहु व रसूलुहु रब्बि इश्रह ली सदरी व यस्सिर ली अमरी वहलुल उक़दतम मिन लिसानी यफ़क़हू क़ौली. Respected viewers and listeners, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In continuation of our Quranic understanding program, today we shall try to read few more verses from chapter number 2, that's Al-Baqarah, starting from verse number 256. Verse number 256. Please hold a copy of Quran in your hands or on a Quran holder and focus your attention towards the verses which are understanding today. That's verse number 256 of Al-Baqarah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. In the name of Allah, the most compassionate, the most merciful. La ikraha fid din. There shall be no compulsion in religion. قَدْ تَبَيَّنَ الرُّشْدُ مِنَ الْغَيِّ. The right course had become distinct from the wrong course of action. فَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِالطَّاغُوتِ. So whoever rejects and disbelieves in Taghut, that evil forces, وَيُؤْمِنْ بِاللَّهِ, and believes in Allah only, فَقَدْ اسْتَمْسَكَ بِالْعُرْوَةِ الْوُثْقَى. He has grasped the most trustworthy handhold, لَا انْفِصَامَ لَهَا, which is not going to break. وَاللَّهُ سَمِيعٌ عَلِيمٌ, and Allah is all hearing and all knowing. Allahu waliyyul ladina amanu. Allah is the protector and ally of those who believe. Yukhrijuhum min adh-dhulumat. He brings them out of the darknesses ila nur, and guides them to light. Walladina kafaru, well as those who disbelieve. Awliyahum at-taghut. Their supporters or their allies are those evil forces, taghut. Yukhrijunahum min an-nur, who take them out of they take them out of the light, ila dhulumat, and guide them to darknesses. Ulaika ashabun nar, they are the companions of fire, hum fiha khalidun, wherein they shall abide. Alam tara ila alladhi, didn't you consider the person, Haja Ibrahim, who argued with Abraham, fi rabbihi, in the matter of his Lord, and atahul mulk, because Allah had granted him kingship or seat of power. Iz qala Ibrahim, when Abraham said to him, Rabbi alladhi yuhyi wa yumit, grants life wa yumit, and it is He in whose control is death also. Qala, the arrogant person said, Ana uhyi wa umit, I too give life, and I also can cause death. Qala Ibrahim, Abraham said, فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْتِي بِالشَّمْسِ مِنَ الْمَشْرِقِ. My Lord causes the sun to rise from the east. فَأْتِ بِهَا مِنَ الْمَغْرِبِ. If you have any power, you cause it to rise from west. فَبُهِتَ الَّذِي كَفَرَ. With this argument, that the disbeliever was confounded. He was thunderstruck and confounded. وَاللَّهُ لَا يَهْدِي الْقَوْمَ الظَّالِمِينَ. And Allah doesn't guide such wrongdoers. Sadaqallahul Azim. These are the verses understanding, starting from verse number 256. And this 256 verse has also a great significance, because it talks about one of the basic principles of our faith, that's faith of Islam. It starts, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, La ikraha fid din. There shall be no compulsion in religion. This is one of the basic principles of Quran and Islam, that there's no scope for any compulsion, any pressure. You cannot force a person to accept faith, and it is according to human nature. That faith, as far as the matter of faith is concerned, it concerns your soul and your heart. And it's not normally possible that you can force a person to change his heart. So Quran upholds this natural urge of human beings, and by saying La ikraha fid din, there shall be no compulsion in religion. Then Islam proved it, that no compulsion, and at no stage was Islam suppressed by any force, by any sword, by any gun, or by any forces which would force somebody to accept faith. It is shocking and surprising, despite this clear Quranic principle that there shall be no compulsory religion, how unfortunate it is that enemies of Islam have been talking about it and accusing Islam and Muslims of forcible conversions, and they try to prove it. Of course, it has no basis whatsoever. They are trying to distort history by highlighting the fact that Islam is suppressed by sword. Whereas Quran is categorical, there shall be no compulsion in religion. You cannot force anybody. In an Islamic system, if somebody forces somebody to accept, change his faith, he will be penalized. He will be punished for this act. It is surprising. How can we prove? Let's have just an overall glimpse of world history. When Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, announced his faith, that's Islam, for the propagation before the people in Makkah itself. It started there, right? How can anybody prove that Muhammad, peace be upon him, forced people to accept Islam? He forced Abu Bakr, Ali, and Khadija, Usman, and others to faith. How was it possible? What did he have in sword in his hand? How could he? The matter was reverse. Why totally reverse? All Meccan swords were hanging on Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his small band of companions. They were at the receiving end. They were tortured. They were persecuted. They were subjected to all kinds of atrocities. For what reason? That they should abandon their faith. They should come back to their faith of paganism, polytheism. So can anybody prove that any single conversion in Makkah was possible by sword? And did it happen? Only at 100%, 101%, ignorant person can even think about it. Because this is against fact. You can simply laugh at the person who can say that Islam started in Makkah by sword. As I told you, all swords were hanging on the heads of the small band of faithful persons, that's the companions of the Prophet. How come? They were subject to worse kind of persecution and atrocities for a reverse process, that they should abandon their faith, which they didn't. Such was the force of the faith. Okay, that was in Makkah. And I guess all God's prophets, peace be upon him, spent 13 years in Makkah. Then after 13 years, under divine command, he, together with a small community of Muslims, his band of workers and companions, they migrated from Makkah to neighboring province, that is Medina. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, spent 10 years there of his prophet till he was recalled by Allah. And he made a journey to paradise. He passed away. And imagine, can anybody even think of any forcible conversion in Medina? How is it possible? Medina, I described Medina, I call it island of peace, island of Islam. It is a small island of faith. Island of faith. Just, it's not Medina like we see today. When Muslims started establishing themselves in Medina, and tried to were on the verge of settlement there, it was just 2 or 4 kilometers radius Medina. And it was surrounded by what? Ocean of paganism. Ocean of idol worshippers. And who were, and plus together with the Jewish tribes, Banu Qurayza, Banu Kanuka, Banu Nazir, and others, who used all the plannings, evil plannings, all the forces at their disposal to invade Medina and finish off Islam once for all. The Muslims lived in Medina and constant 24-hour uncertainty. They had spent sleepless nights. Any noise from any quarter during night, Muslims would get trembled. Perhaps Medina has been invaded. They were under constant threat. How come Muslims could imagine any forcible conversion? Can the most arrogant and simultaneously the most arrogant person can even think about it? Forget about he talks about and tries to prove this point. How is it? This is about the initial stage of. Then later on, Islam spread. How within just 23 years of prophethood, at the end of that, when the Prophet peace be upon him left this world, whole Arabian Peninsula had accepted faith. Was that by sword? Can anybody prove it? And then Prophet left a blueprint for his followers that they have to carry forward this mission to neighboring country, and in fact, target was to whole world. They had to invite whole world to this faith of Islam, and which they did faithfully and in a proper way. And that's how Islam is spreading. Now, because it's not time, I'm constrained by the time factor, the limitation of time. Now command 4, we go ahead. Let's come into India, Indian subcontinent, a huge Muslim population. More Muslims in India we have than all the Arab countries put together. You know that? All Arab countries put together, there are more number of Muslims in India than Arab. So this, if we put Pakistan with that, that's part of Indian subcontinent, and then Bangladesh too, that's a part of it. Then it becomes huge. It becomes almost more than half, or even more than half Muslim population in this Indian subcontinent. How was it? How did it happen? Did Islam spread in India by Ghoris and Ghaznavis? Is there any part or any role of Mughals who ruled India for a few centuries? Is there any role for these Mughals? No way. Nothing doing. What we see Islam today, Muslim population in Indian subcontinent, that around 200 million in India, then we're around equal number in Pakistan, 22 million, and then 150 million or more in Bangladesh. If we put together, it's a big, huge population. There's no role of invaders, so-called what they are branded as invaders. Even Muhammad bin Qasim is branded as invader. Okay, we have no problem with that. Or the Muhammad Ghori and Muhammad Ghaznavis are others who invaded, and Nadir Shahs. Only an ignorant person who doesn't possess an alphabetic knowledge of history of the subcontinent can even think about it, that if the conversion happened to them. What we see today, it's not even Mughals. They were more interested. They were interested in simply creating forts and monuments and Muslim, what we say, this other place of historic importance. They were not bothered about Islam and its spread. What we see in Islam, it is by the efforts of saintly people, spiritual people, like Muhyiddin Chishti, Nizamuddin Awliyas, and others. That's what we see today. Nobody can choose that they didn't have any sword. If at all, now okay, we can rule out. If at any stage of history somebody might have used force for conversion, it is to be condemned by according to Islamic standard that those can be isolated incidents. And Muslim Ummah has never upheld that. Because Quran is the basic principle, la ikraha fi din, there shall be no compulsion in religion. Take example, come to Kashmir, from which belong to this state. How Islam reached Kashmir? Around 600 years earlier, there was a saintly person, Abdurrahman, first Abdurrahman Bulbul, and then Mir Sayyid Ali, a man from Hamadan named Mir Sayyid Ali. He came to this place and Islam flourished. So can a single instance be quoted that he came here with sword, with an army? Only an ignorant person can think about it, who will be totally ignorant about history. And today we see almost more than 90% population really is a Muslim population. So by the efforts of peaceful efforts of Mir Sayyid Ali, of Hamadan. Not a single blast fired. How come? It's not possible. He came with some band of workers and companions. They were spiritual people. They were pious and righteous people, as the propagators of faith. And they didn't carry a knife with them, nor any other arm. It's here. And see now, if we go beyond, we see Indonesia, far east, which happens to be the most populous Muslim country in the world, number one country as far as Muslim population is concerned, which is around 250 million. That in Indian language, 24 crore Muslims live in Indonesia. About India, we may say that Mughals ruled, then came in the meantime, India was invaded by Ghoris and Ghaznavis and others. But about Indonesia or Malaysia, these are two countries, nobody can even cite an example, any single example, that any invader reached there and started propagating Islam in Indonesia. Not a single instance of that, like that. It was simply by Maulana Ibrahim and his associates that we see today Indonesia in the Far East becoming number one Muslim populated country in the world. And go step ahead. See today, from all this world statistics available with us, Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world. Hundreds of people. I don't have any personal statistics, but there are scores, if not hundreds, at least scores, conversions every week, every day in America, USA, in Australia, in Europe, in different countries of Europe, and other places in the world. So imagine, can anybody say that Islam is spreading in America by sword? Somebody is carrying pistol and forcing people to convert to Islam. Is it him? The situation is reverse. All the swords are hanging on the heads of Muslims this time, under the banner of NATO or other, for whatever it is. I don't want to go to the political part of it. But one thing is clear. You see New York, you see Washington, you see California, you see Texas, any state in America, people accepting faith. On every Sunday, I have myself seen, I have attended many functions in masjids in New York and other places, where on Friday, after the completion of the Friday prayers, there are one, two or more who declare their shahada, that we have accepted Islam as our religion, and they seek that they declare their faith. Ashhadu Allah ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Is that by a pistol or by sword? So you can imagine. This is practiced before us, and still we Muslims sometimes get impressed because we too are ignorant about history. This is the basic principle of La ikraha fi din. There shall be no compulsion in religion. But with the arrival of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon, on the world scene, what happened? Katta baina rushd wal ghayy. The right path has now become distinct from the wrong path. That is contribution of Islam. When there's total darkness around, and a candle, light spreads, and everything becomes clear. What's right, why to go, why not to go. A straight path or a deviated path. That is with the arrival of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and revelation of Quran, things became clear. And now the choice is with the person. That's how Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, used to do. Offer faith of Islam, belief in one God, belief in revelation and prophethood and life hereafter, and make them understand its significance and relevance in everyday life. And people would convert, as it is done even today. Great people converted to Islam. Was it by force? Was Maryam Jamila converted by force, a New York girl belonged to a Jewish family? Was Muhammad as a Leopold Weiss from Austria, one of the greatest Muslim prophets of 20th century, was he forced to convert to Islam? Murad Hoffman, the German ambassador in Morocco, and then one of these, and he was also a Harvard graduate, German ambassador, a statesman, and finally one of the directors of NATO. He reverted to Islam, and we call him now Murad Hoffman. Great books to his credit. Islam, the Alternative. I happened to see him in one of the conferences in Chicago. Yes. Islam, the Alternative. Islam 2000, Diary of a German Muslim, Journey to Makkah. These are books. Was he forced? Who can? Lord Hadley Al-Farouk, a member of House of Lords of England. Was he forced to accept Islam? Okay, I don't want to do it now. I think things should be clear to us. La ikraha fi din, there shall be no compulsion in religion. Katabani rushd min al-ghayy. A right path has become distinct from the wrong path with the arrival of Quran and the faith of Islam. Now, فَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِالطَّاغُوتِ. Now, who disbelieves in Taghut? Taghut is a special terminology used by Quran. Taghut means anything or anyone who is worshipped other than God. That means anything evil forces which people, mankind has at any stage, individually or collectively, who have worshipped them. Quran calls them Taghut. So Quran says, فَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ تَاغُوتِ. Who disbelieves in Taghut? That's all the evil forces, parallel forces, who have no divinity, but they have been, human beings have themselves ascribed divinity to them, who disbelieves in them, وَيُؤْمِنْ بِاللَّهِ, and believes in Allah, because now the path of piety has become clear from path of from the wrong path. So now choices with human being, choices with man. So whoever disbelieves in Taghut, that means any anti-forces or evil forces, and وَيُؤْمِنْ بِاللَّهِ, and believes in Allah, one true God, فَقَدْ اسْتَمْسَكَ بِالْعُرْوَةِ الْوُثْقَى. Who believes in Allah and rejects all false gods, he has grasped the most trustworthy handhold, because he believes in true God, real, the only God. That's a grasp which cannot break, because he's holding God, Allah, as his creator, Lord and sustainer. Wallahu Sami'un Alim. And Allah is all hearing and all knowing. Then Quran says, continuing the same statement forward, Allah waliyul ladina amanu. Allah is protector and ally of those who believe. Because when people believe in Allah, He takes care of them. He is their supporter. He is their protector. So Allah waliyul ladina amanu. Yukhrijuhum min adh-dhulumati ila an-nur. When they believe in Allah, but they get out from that belief that Allah takes them out of darknesses of the world and guides them to the light of faith, the true light, true path of guidance. Once a person declares faith in one God, true God, Quran says, Allah waliyul ladina amanu. Allah is a supporter, patron, caretaker of the believers. Yukhrijuhum min adh-dhulumati ila an-nur. He brings them out of all darknesses, about all the immoralities, from all the influence of false and fabricated gods. He takes them out of those darknesses, ila nur, and guides them to the light, the real and true path of salvation, path of bliss, path of success, path of attainment. He guides them. وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. On the other hand, those who disbelieve, that who reject God, true God, He is the only God, only Allah. وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. Those who disbelieve, that who disbelieve in God, reject one true and real God, Lord and nourisher and sustainer. What? أَوْلِيَاهُمُ الطَّاغُوتُ. Obviously and automatically, when they lose grip of God, that they are not holding grip or they are not grasping Allah, that means they are left high and dry. Their protectors are none but this Taghut, these evil forces. Those who have been given divinity by humans themselves, they become their supporters because they have lost the grip of God. They are not going to hold to that grasp, the real grasp, that's one belief in one God. What happens They awliyahum tagut. These evil forces become their supporters. Yukhrijunahum min an-nuri ila an-zulumat. What is a reverse process? They take them out of light and throw them in utter darknesses around. Because they have themselves rejected light. They have opted for darknesses and they are engulfed by total darknesses. That they are misled, they become immoral, they become selfish, unjust people, wicked. Because they have rejected the path of light, path of God and path of truth and path of honesty. Ulaika ashabun nar, they are the dwellers of fire, whum fiha khalidun, wherein they shall abide. Then cross alam tara ila allati. Its statement is complete. Now a short story, full of lessons. It's about Abraham. We know about Abraham we talked about before. It is around 4,200 years backwards from now. There's around 2,200 BC when Abraham was born in what we call present-day country, that's Iraq. That time it was Babylonia. In a city called Ur, he was born there. And he was very intelligent, very clever, and very truthful right from early childhood. Because he was going to be the prophet. Prophets are chosen ones. And he grew up in an atmosphere where there was only darkness around. Darkness of polytheism, idol worshipping. Even his father, Azar, was one of the great polytheists. And the king of that place, that country, it was Nimrod, the great autocrat, and who used to force people to worship him and claim to be God or shadow of God. Zille Ilahi, or shadow of God, he used to claim. In such trying circumstances and total darkness, Abraham, when he grew up, I'm cutting it short because we were talking about that earlier. Then Abraham was chosen, appointed by Allah as his messenger, as his prophet. And he started inviting people to this path of light, which we were talking about in the previous verse. Path of bliss, path of salvation, path of attainment, path of peace. That's what is Islam. Because all religions preach no religion but Islam. Islam meaning total surrender and submission before one and only true God. That was preached by all the prophets, including that great Abraham. And when he started, the situation was such that everybody turned up against him. Even his father, his parents, his friends, his relatives, his people around, including the king. When news came to him that Azar's son, Azar happened to be one of the influential ministers in Nimrod's cabinet. So it was a different story. So he was called. Just to give small background to this verse. When things started becoming out of hand, so once Nimrod called Abraham to the court just to reprimand him, just to warn him about the consequences of his preachings, that how is he, according to his standards, misleading people, asking people to abandon all these hundreds and thousands of gods and then making them to understand that they should worship one God. Why? It was a challenge to their authority and to their whole faith and to their religion and way of life. So Abraham was summoned. That should be the small background of this verse. There are ministers and members of parliament, assembly, whatever they used to call that time. They were around Nimrod in his throne. Abraham was called, and there was conversation. Nimrod wanted to threaten him and prove to the people around, to his close ones, that Abraham has no argument for his faith. He's simply trying to mislead people. The conversion starts here. Alam tara ila alladhi, did you consider the person, that is obviously referring here to Nimrod, the king, Haja Ibrahim fi Rabbi, who argued with Abraham about his Lord. That means in the court of Nimrod asked Abraham, whom are you worshipping and whom you are asking people to worship? Abraham said, the one real true God, Allah. creator of heavens and earth, your creator and my creator, creator of everything. That I am worshipping myself, and I am asking that, I am propagating that true faith, to worship one and surrender, submit before none other than one true God. So Nimrod, it was challenged to Nimrod's authority. He said, how come? Quran says he was arrogant. Alam tara ila alladhi haja Ibrahim. Did you consider the person who argued with Abraham, fear of me regarding his Lord? An atahul al mulk. Why did he dispute? Why did he argue? He was arrogant because Allah had granted him, given him power. He was the king. Allah had granted him kingship, and he was holding the seat of power. Iskala Ibrahim, when Abraham was asked whom you worship, as I told you just now, Iskala Ibrahim, when Abraham said to him, Rabbi alladhi yuhyi wa yumit, my Lord, whom I am worshipping and inviting others to worship, that my Lord, Rabbi alladhi, my Lord is one, yuhyi wa yumit, who gives life and causes death. Under his control is death. Life and death is under his control. That's one of the reasons I am worshipping him and asking, inviting others to worship. That arrogant, it was challenged to that arrogant Nimrod's authority. He said, Qala, he said, out of arrogance, Ana uhyi wa umit. I too can give life and I too can cause death. That was arrogance. It is said, I don't know, it's in folklore, how far it is right. They say Nimrod tried to prove his point. It is said that he asked his police personnel or army people who were around, the law enforcing agencies, he asked them, okay, I can prove this point. Bring a condemned prisoner who was going to die the day he was to be hanged that day. He was brought to the court, and Nimrod released him and said, told Abraham, see, he was going to die. I have granted him life, so I can give life. And similarly, just from the street, around a street, innocent person was caught hold, brought to the court, and Nimrod ordered his execution and was killed. Nimrod said, isn't death also under my control? I can give life and I can cause death also. And his people, his ministers around there started cheering and enjoying it and ridiculing Abraham. See, Abraham, what are you talking about? See our king, how much power and authority he has, everything. You say your Lord can give life and cause death. Our king can do it better and before your eyes. But Abraham had another argument. Abraham said, okay, my Lord, or Allah, cause his sun to rise from the east. If you have any power and authority, you claim to have that power, you cause the sun to rise from the west. This was an argument. How could he react to that? How could he respond to this argument? Quran says, فَبُهِتَ الَّذِي كَفَرَ. That great disbeliever, Nimrod, in chair, in a man of authority, claiming to be God, or demigod or semi-God, claiming فَبُهِتَ الَّذِي كَفَرَ. He was thunderstruck. He was confounded. He was rendered speechless, with open eyes open, but tongue not speaking. He was left high and dry. And Abraham was victorious. And the arrogant head of Nimrod had to fall down before Abraham's greatness. For Quran says, فَبُهِتَ الَّذِي كَفَرَ. He was confounded and thunderstruck. وَاللَّهُ لَا يَهْدِي الْقَوْمَ الظَّالِمِينَ. And Allah doesn't guide the wrongdoers. That means who, despite seeing this and understanding, still who doesn't believe, Allah doesn't force any such wrongdoer does force him to believe. It's a very good and important and historical story. Very interesting. It makes us clear that a true believer has always an argument which his opponent cannot have. The opponent may have some argument one way or the other, but final argument is with true believer. That's Abraham's discussion with Nimrod. Sadaqallahu al-Azim.